we please welcome our moderator, Srikanth Venkataswamy, founder and director of Inmark EV Auto Technologies, bringing 27 years of experience across automotive, aerospace, and electric vehicles. Joining him will be Mr. Hurmaan Ahmed, a technology and product leader specializing in product strategy, technology development, and digital solutions that enable industrial sustainability. Thirdly, we have Mr. Arvind Yadav, Chief Strategy Officer, Sun Mobility, the pioneer of battery swapping in India and one of the companies defining the energy infrastructure beneath the country's electric transmission. Lastly, we have Mr. Shashi Bhushan, the Director of EV Care Solutions, India Private Limited, a seasoned business and technology professional with nearly 2 decades of experience in smart solutions. Kindly join us on the dais, sir. Now I hand over the session to Mr. Srikanth, who will be the moderator of the session.
Hello. Thank you very much, Bimal. It was a nice thing. Good evening, everybody. I know it's a late session. I think we have a lot of important features. Like last session, what we closed on was government regulations are required or government push is required. Is it really required for the government push, or is it really, that's what the panel is all about. Today, right now, we are going to discuss this in detail. I think, Madam, can we... We are discussing on a government push. Madam, you can be part of the system. Yeah. Okay, today what's happening is, can we start? Yeah. So a previous session was an interesting session which closed on government regulations, which is a key for any development, any technological development. Of course, today, because you are all in the late hour, I like to give a small story to push you up now. Okay? It will be okay. Few audience also okay. Right. Now today, the change is inevitable. If you don't change, the change will change you, for good or for bad. The same way is here, EV technology is here to stay, and if you don't change, the change may start changing in a different way. Having said this, when once we start that human started moving, mobility, he started walking through his legs. Then suddenly he found a need that he wanted a cart, he can't move a distance. Then he found a cart. Then once he found a cart, then he found a need for pulling the cart. He added an animal to pull the cart. Here the story starts, the technology starts here. A very big technology starts here. What is driving? The driver. The driver is the animal, the driven is the cart. Even today, the whole technology stands here. And the driver may be anything. It may be a fossil fuel driver, an engine, a powertrain, a coal, nuclear energy, fossil fuel, gas, CNG. It may be anything. Only the change has happened over the system, but the driver is driving the driven. The technology remains the same. And today we have come to the next generation electrical technology where we are trying to move the system across. So to move this, there's many things come into conclusions. Who's doing what? Again, coming back to a small scenario to make it interesting to my crowd. Today we live in the world of global presence. How many of us are global customers? Can you raise your hands? How many of us are global customers? Or not? We are not global customers. Can anybody raise? Any of our audience also can do it. How many of us are global customers? Are anybody a global customer? Anybody is a global customer? Yes, sir. Everybody is a global customer.
We are all global customers.
Yes or no?
Obviously.
Are we a global customer? Yes. Any small replication somewhere in the world, that is directly affected somewhere in some part of the world. Yes or no? We are all interdependent. We are all interdependent on technology. As things goes on, there's something called a global geopolitics is happening. I'm telling a story because it's connected. Geopolitics is coming up where today you've seen the scenario. Geopolitics is what? Geopolitics in power, energy, supremacy, fighting in wars. Is war playing havoc in the transportation sector? Is war playing a havoc in transportation sector? Fuel prices. What's happening to fuel prices? War somewhere else is affecting somebody else in our village. Our farmers cannot move, cannot run his diesel engine. The price of the fuel energy has gone up. So what are we looking at? A change there. A change for a purpose. So at the same time, what our panel discussion today, the geopolitics is that how we have wars fighting against each other, doing something good, something bad. Above all these things require some good governance of the governments. Governments are also very responsible and they have to have good governance to sustain development. Yes or no? So to develop the sustainable development, they have to bring in good policies and incentives or whatever executive they have to move around. One such was last time discussion Madhavan was discussing, what right policies are not in place can create a havoc in the market. I may develop the superior product, I may have the best of the technologies, I may have the best of the system, but if there is no regulations or a good governance, the things can't move. That is the topic of the day, today what we're talking about. Yes or no, sir?
Yes.
So coming back to the good governance, you've seen today across the globe, we have a lot of norms coming up into picture. That is, you can see India, in India we have Bharat 6 norm, where it is restricted some regulations. Where we're talking about automobile sector. We talk about Europe, we got Euro 7 norms now coming up. Very stringent laws. To my next 10 to 15 years, I think there will not even one fossil fuel car will be there in Europe. That is a stringent policy they are going to adopt. Any polluting car has to be paid double the price what it has to be. Is it good or bad? Technology will take up. The same way in India we have people governance is very important, where government has taken very serious steps in bringing forward to bring the people, the last people in the line to get the best of the technology to himself at the best cost what is required. That's the part of the governance what has to be done today. So having the panel, I have a beautiful panel here. Today we are going to discuss something relatively about what we want to do today, and what we are talking about would be very relevant and very active, where we want to bring in certain change in our talks as well. So today we'll start off with the conversation with saying that would India's EV market have grown the current pace without government incentives? Yeah, we'll start with the change. I think any of our panel, Ms. Hurmaan, can take up this and start off with that, and we'll continue doing that. Would India's EV market have grown at the current pace without government incentives? Can we start, sir?
Yep, absolutely. We need to first understand why economies incentivize economies, right? That is critical when we're talking about why subsidies. We cannot just say when we are talking about subsidies, it's not about should we do it or should we not. It's about timing. How do we do it? Why do we do it? By when do we do it? And when do we sunset it? These are the important policy questions.
You mean this is the time at which it's getting to the technology is good?
I'm sorry.
Or bad?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, the time is very important. That's what you mean to say.
I'm talking about the strategy. When we're mentioning subsidies, right? Till when? It is important for us to make sure, for example, consider EVs, right? There are three particular value chain that branches of EV, the main value chain, right? There's batteries, there's vehicles, and then there's infrastructure, right? How do these three value chains conflate into each other, and what are the critical masses that need to be achieved in these independent value chains such that after that point subsidies can be pulled out? Because subsidies cannot be there forever. We need to let capitalism win at some point. It is just delaying capital effects so that the market penetration doesn't die out too soon, right? That's my point.
Okay. Mr. Arvind, about it.
Sure. I agree. In terms of subsidies playing a role, they have a very defined role in terms of inception of any particular vehicle segment, but they have to have a shelf life. So I see this as three particular stages for development of any market. You start with the subsidies, then you let capitalism or economics take over, and then you finally end up in a mandate like the way Delhi has done, wherein there are people who need to be pushed a little bit more. Even though it's making economic sense, they would not have moved. But for the greater good, you come in with a mandate saying that these vehicles are not going to be allowed. And that is going to be the case for other vehicle segments also. I mean, I'm taking the Delhi example for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, where we started with PM E-Drive. We were able to do a significant large number of vehicles continuing from FAME 2. But the economics for a two-wheeler and three-wheeler are already making sense in terms of EV. So we don't need that subsidy anymore. And that's why we've graduated to a mandate. We'll see similar movements in other sectors. They are right now more in the subsidy to leading to a unit economics phase, but they would also sort of follow a similar journey.
So,
Yeah, Mr.
yes.
Shashi Bhushan J.
Yeah, it's
Go
a
ahead.
very good feedbacks, whatever you have given me inputs. The question is, Indian EV market might have grown to this extent without the incentives, without the government initiative. So, in my view, so without government initiative, without government actives as a catalyst to bring this kind of a technology, so we were transitioning from ICE, petrol or diesel engines, to electrical vehicles and all. So it will be highly impossible. So government authorities, government policies play a catalyst role for the OEMs, manufacturing segment, service segment, to bring their in a time, money and their contribution towards the development of technologies, towards the development of ecosystem. So in my view, it is very clear that incentives is required. As my colleague said, it has to be time to close the incentives also. Yes, incentive structures also has to be draw a line, or you can slow down that incentive structure once the market has been stabilized, once the market has been reached to a certain level. Beyond that, we can invest that same policies or the programs towards the technological development, not to the marketing expenses, incentives for the consumers or the manufacturers. We have to invest on the technologies. What are the technologies we require in EV segment? Batteries. Not only the batteries, controllers, systems, software, controlling systems, and the wiring managements. All these things has to be refined, because in these EV vehicles, we are aware of this will be running on electrical vehicles. Any small, minute leakage of supply may blast the vehicles. Any misconnections will damage
So you mean
the
to say
complete fire.
technology is playing a major role here?
Major role, the
so
technology,
incentives,
yes.
You should have an initial handholding. That is what Mr. Shashi Bhushan
Yes.
is telling.
So that will
that
be
initial
continuous.
handholding should be there by the government through incentives. So that it should be having a propulsion. That is it's a springboard for a development. And
Correct.
incentives by itself cannot be a part of development. That's a bad economy. That's truly bad economy.
Yes.
But today, what we are looking at today, when we talk about incentives should stop. Meaning, because there should be something called a market-driven economy. Competition should lead. That is where the innovation will come up. This is a major part of the globe, what is happening, and that is where we have to learn from it. Giving just spoon-feeding a lot of technology and spoon-feeding a lot of incentives doesn't work over the period of time. Any day, technology has to take over, incentives has to take over. Government should act like a regulator. It should not be like a mother feeding all the time. Right? So coming back, we'll come to a next important topic which we like to discuss and go to the very relevant topics. Are consumers buying EV for sustainability or economics? This has been a question all around the world, not here. It has been always thinking why we have to talk about sustainability, why should we go on economics, or it's a, what is the real fact? Can we bring it out? Yeah, Mr. I think one more is given.
Hi.
Hello.
I think it's not that simple in terms of it's a mixed bag. Sustainability definitely plays a role in terms of the overall policy mandates and everybody. For example, Delhi is being driven by the need for us to have clean air over there. The policies pan-India are being driven by our need to be independent, especially in the current geopolitical situation. We have understood the risk of depending too much on imported oil. So all these add up to the sustainability part. But when you look at the consumer, I think still there is a big consideration coming from the end consumer towards the economics part. So, and that goes segment by segment. Whether you look at a two-wheeler or three-wheeler, you would see that, cost of running on EV and cost of running on ICE, you would see that it's about 1/5 or 1/6 for a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler. And that has really driven the B2B adoption of these two-wheelers and three-wheelers, whether it be a gig worker or the auto guy, or in some cases loaders also. When you look at a commercial vehicle, the same equation is going to apply, but of course that market needs a little bit more development. In four-wheelers, that applies a lot to the taxi segment, and that's why we see adoption there. If you are running X number of kilometers in a day, which is closer to 200 to 300 for a taxi guy, he can really cover up the gap, the upfront price gap between a EV and an ICE vehicle within 1 to 2 years. That figure for a private owner would be around 4 to 5 years. So that definitely plays a role in terms of how penetration is going in each segment.
So you want to say output of the vehicle and what is the inheritance of that vehicle would really count, because based on what economics it works, what is the return on investment or the cost of ownership of a person or the vehicle. Right? So that is what you mean to say, that is the end of the day that counts.
Of course, every gig worker would calculate in the end how much petrol he's using versus what he's saving from fuel in electricity.
Kitna deta hai? That's
exactly.
A good idea.
That question is never going to go away, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, that's a real well. Yeah, Mr. Shashi Bhushan, how can...
So, in my point of view, so the consumer having few points in their mind always if they go for new vehicles. The new vehicles, the quality of the vehicles also they'll consider before they go for a purchase. Second is the economy. Okay, what is that return on investment? How much mileage it will provide? All those things. And the third important point is service availability. Whether my vehicles can be serviced at a reasonable cost. Okay, if it is an expensive service, recurring things is there, that is also challenging. And the fourth point is the battery. So what is the life of the battery? What is the warranty of the batteries which company is providing? Okay, all those points makes consumer to decide to switch from ICE to electric vehicles. Apart from this, one last key Indian mindset is resale. Okay, so that is what our mindset. So whether I will get my money, at least 30-40% of the cost of the investment once I thought of reselling my vehicle. All these points.
So that is a plus point in an electric vehicle. Resale value of a vehicle is very high. Coming from a very pioneer industry of Reva Electric Car, now Mahindra Electric. The only thing what we found was when I want even my Reva Electric car runs even today. I change my batteries, still it's new. I don't have change. I think to get on to the reusability of the vehicle, I think I'd like to adhere. There's a EV technology is, how many of think it's a very new, latest technology? How many of us think that? How many of us think that? It's a very latest technology. It is almost like 100-year-old technology, mind you. It's not new. In London city, it is 100 years that milk floats run on electric vehicles. Tramway in Calcutta runs on electric. It is still runs without any cost. Yeah, it's absolutely. So what is the reusability and retailability is very high, and only thing is cost effectiveness is the way out. Yes, Mr. Ahmed, what can you tell about this?
My thoughts on this is that before we answer, economics of an EV, we need to first figure out the economics of a vehicle. Why is someone buying a car or not? Because when EVs showed up, the de facto was ICE. So when someone says this is something new, the first thing a person does is compare it. Okay, how is it different from my old? Right. So first we need to figure out why does someone buy a vehicle in the first place. And when I think about that dimension, the thoughts that prevail the most is the fact that I fear that maybe, just maybe, there could be a small thread of chance that this could fall into the direction of how E20 is being perceived. For example, what I truly mean is to say the agency has to be on the user. It's to say, look, this is a new option, this is why this is better, but the agency is on you. And then let the consumer decide why he needs an EV. But you engineer the consumption. You engineer the reason. Okay, if the reasons are actually better.
You have to find the reasons of the best economics to buy the
Precisely.
best vehicle. Okay, that's what is the thing. Now coming back to this way of things, EV is no doubt in the long run pays you off. This has been thrown over the period of time. But what I am looking at is people are now facing, we have now touched some parts of economies of scale which it works on. And today when we get the volumes in the right place, India is a very big market. Once I have heard Lord Swarajpal of UK telling, he has got many investments across the globe. Then when he asked, why don't you invest in India? Why you're not much? You are an Indian. Why don't you invest in India? He said, I'm a very small person to invest in India because India is a very, 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 very big market. You create a small spark, it catches fire. So that big market India is. Today you can see the revolution in EV technology where I think two-wheelers are taking a good place. I think good numbers are coming up. Three-wheelers have almost grown by 65% of today's cargo. I think that's a good scale. I think we require a good clap for it actually this time. 65% is quite good in penetration of the EV market. So coming back, we have a lot of challenges as well. We cannot say it's a red carpet for everything for EV or electrical technology, what we talk about. So when I started my career at Reva, the first thing was, how is it charged? First I had to sell the concept to sell the car. First I had to sell the concept to sell the car. People laughed at the car. How does it run? I created a 1-month awareness program in places like Mysore, Dasara to bringing that it can run on electricity also. Right? And today we are just thinking infrastructure is that we have so much gap, infrastructure is not there. And we used to charge the cars at the BD Pan shop, 5 amps current. And I've been part of the advisor to Bihar government. I told them that in Bihar there are a lot less than 10,000 vehicles without any charging infrastructure. I questioned the government, where are these people charging the vehicles? Every day it's running. But where are they charging? People know there is no charging infrastructure. Is that so? Is there no charging infrastructure? So that's what the next questions we were talking about. Charging infrastructure doesn't mean we have to be high-tech in charging. This is what I can send you my videos. I can show you last 10 years back what I told them in Bihar and other places. That in this room I can charge 100 vehicles to start with. Who's stopping me? Right? I don't have to have a quick charger to start to move in the technology. No, to come back, there's a very serious question here. Is charging infrastructure expanding faster enough to support consumer confidence? This is what the question I like to put onto the panel. I think, is really the charging infrastructure coming up in a big way? I think, Ahmed Saab, can you take it up?
Sure, another classic chicken and egg problem.
Exactly.
Look, infrastructure, we have to balance the scale. We cannot say we're going to spend a lot of energy on pushing EVs and then build the infrastructure, or we cannot say let's build the infrastructure and let's wait for the EVs to come. And as the moderator pointed out precisely, that infrastructure is something that can be delegated, and that cannot and that can be sourced differently, and can be used differently. And that is how India's journey has also been. So I precisely agree with the way India has gone up until this moment, but the future is to be seen. Maybe we'll have Arvind add more thoughts.
Sure. Infrastructure is a bit of a dichotomy right now. We have seen amazing growth, and that is required in terms of public chargers. Around 53,000 are right there, and then they've grown tremendously in the last 6 months. But what you also have to look at is the utilization. So the best estimates say that 10% to 25% is what the utilization of these public chargers are. And the reason for that is actually very simple. Right now, the penetration has not reached to a level where infrastructure becomes a bottleneck. The people who are buying the EV right now are not depending on public infrastructure. They're making sure that they have a charging point at home or with something very convenient. Then only they are going to invest in the EV. This is going to change drastically once we cross, let's say, 20% of penetration in any category. Then you start thinking the delivery boy cannot charge at home because there is no space to even park right now, let alone charge the vehicle near his house. This is actually a very useful business case in terms of what we are doing in terms of building the battery swapping infrastructure. And what you will see that this is also going to play out in dense cities later on. Because infrastructure is not just the connection. It's also real estate. When you go to a city like a Bombay or a Bangalore and you talk about EV buses replacing everything, you would find those places at a premium in terms of, can you find a place to park 10 buses over there? I was talking to a fast charging company who was building it for buses. They told me that it's not just about building a charger. When a bus comes full of 55 passengers, those 55 passengers, even if it's the fastest charger, for 45 minutes, if they're going to wait, they're going to need a washroom, they're going to need some place to eat. So you can't just set up a standalone charger over there. You have to set up a whole ecosystem in terms of infrastructure. So in the end, what I think is that we're moving in the right direction, but the utilization, it will all come in a later stage, and it will all come quite suddenly when people realize that, wow, we've got an infrastructure set up, we've done the investment, and now if I buy a EV, I will not be worried about planning my trip if I have to go there, because I know the infrastructure works, the chargers work, and I will not be having to wait in a queue to charge my vehicle. So that growth is definitely coming.
So that's really good, Arvind. What is happening in infrastructure is one things we can go on and on and on infrastructure. So which came first, that is best we are talking about. But what I was part of the regulation right from the day one, and he's part of my colleague, now ex-colleague, I can call him as a Sun Mobility. The Reva, what we did, the first charging point was done in Forum Mall. The first charging point was in India. Mind you, it's in money in India's first charging mall was even today it exists. But what I'm talking about is the regulations, what we have today, we are talking about huge infrastructure. When we started off, there was no rule saying that somebody can sell electricity. somebody can sell electricity. We have to come on to that phase where we have to go to the government, ask for regulations to change to somebody can buy electricity. That means if somebody is selling electricity, it was amounting for a criminal conspiracy. So we have to change that law. So coming from that regulation, people should understand that we have come a far off places, and India is a place which catch very fast and we can go on very fast. So today I want to again pose a very important question after the infrastructure, and it is an ongoing basis. Infrastructure will develop, it has already developed. Every 10 kilometer you can find a very good charging point, and it's going in a very faster pace. I can challenge you. Today it is going in a very much faster pace. Any part of the globe you can compare, India is equally challenged and I think we're ahead of the system. This is what I can tell you right now. So coming back to a consumer...
I would like to add one more point
please
into
go ahead.
that infrastructure. So charging infrastructure comes from grid to EV. Okay, so charging infrastructure in one point of view, just not the point of charging your vehicles when you go there. So there is a system behind that. So there is an installation of charging infrastructure, management of charging infrastructure, operation and maintenance of charging infrastructure. That plays a major role. In the previous panel discussion they said, so there is an availability of service charging station. But once we reach there, if it is not functional, then it is a huge impact on the consumer mind.
Yeah,
so
that is additional
that plays a major role to active all the supply chain or ecosystem over in the infrastructure. Particularly, this is a big science. Okay, there is a big professional
we can really bring in
handling
lot of
people, technicians, I can say, engineers who are going to manage this infrastructure, play a major role to make this live in a longer run.
That was a fair question, because we have an infrastructure, we don't have a maintenance, that be a big problem. That is a solvable problem where I think we can talk about a good SOP where I think we can start
coming to the second point, tier 2 and tier 3. In the rural area also, if you want to expand our EV segment into the rural segment, there are government or institutes are there, government hospitals, government bus stops, all these places you can utilize and put our service centers there, so charging infrastructures there. What will happen in that case, wherever the people who are coming out from the village to the cities, town B, A, B and cities, they will get it charged if at all any emergencies. And the people who are commuting crossing that districts, that taluks, that hoblis, okay, that will be getting charged. All these
what
things
Mr. Shashi Bhushan, I'd like to what Mr. Shashi Bhushan is telling, that we are just now looking at the urban lookout.
Correct.
What happens to the rural area? Because the rural, now today what is happening, there's no difference between the urban and the rural markets.
Yes.
To be very precise. And the need, today India works on a need-based technology, need-based understanding. I don't build 100 feet road just to move next 10 years round. The road what we build has to be scrutinized, it should be completely utilized, then I build a new road. That's a need-based technology what we have in India, the infrastructure development, that is what is going on. To cut down on cost, to bring your cash flow things, and a lot of incentives are there, a lot of investment will come into picture. That's a room for debate also as well. Now coming back to the real consumer, where our customer, what is happening is are we really giving a good experience right now at this point in time, or can we improve the consumer benefit to him? So are consumer receiving the EV experience they are actually promised? Is that so? I think Madam had a serious question on that. We'll come back to you, Madam, on that. So can we have a thought on EV, Mr. Arvindya?
Sure. I think again it's a mixed bag. Depends on who you ask. If you ask a customer who's just bought a two-wheeler for private use, his concerns are going to be very different. Where do I service it is going to be the topmost of it. If you ask a gig worker, his concerns are going to be, how do you reduce the downtime of my vehicle? I don't really care much about anything. Is this impacting my earnings or not? And similarly, if you go to four-wheelers or a taxi driver, they would have different experience and they would give a different rating in terms of the experience that they are getting. But I would like to answer it from more of an institutional point of view, where you have to think of everything as an ecosystem that you have to provide. You can't just build a great electric scooter and expect the consumer to be happy. You have to think about servicing. You have to think about charging. You have to think about spare parts. So all that has to be bundled as an ecosystem, and you have to take people along. And for example, even at Sun Mobility, what we try to do is build that ecosystem to think that, if we are getting a customer, he should never have to wait more than 2 minutes for a battery. So in Delhi NCR, for example, you add all the number of petrol pumps, and we would have more charging stations every 1.5 kilometers, swapping stations. So that gives an indication to the gig worker that yes, this is a reliable network. So I think there would be very happy customers because their needs are being met. There would be people who would always want more, but I think that is how the market has to evolve. It can't evolve all of a sudden.
I think I have a very small solutions that cost and time are a very important factor for both the ends, the institutional way or the consumer way. Both look at the cost and time and come to a point, then I think a lot of economy can develop and a lot of things can also develop. Coming back to the next question, what we do is, we come to a very important standpoint that in future, what would be the real role of EV or the technology by itself or by what the mobility would do for the actual people? What will drive the India's EV market over the next decade? Policy or consumer choice? So this is the question. I think the panel can start from there. We can start arguing, Mr. Ahmed. Give you a very brief points.
Again, agency on the user. It cannot be one fuel, one nation. Different targets of mobility cover different dimensions of consumer needs, and all of these different technologies have such histories to them. You were mentioning how old is EV. EV is very old when you compare it to hydrogen, right? People think hydrogen is older, and ICE again, it has a history. So hundreds of years of development in these verticals of technologies. We can't just give up on two and say this is the future. We need to continue progressing in all the three dimensions, and that is where we find progress.
Mr. Shashi Bhushan J.
Yes, thank you. See, last 10 years, EV has exponentially grown in Indian market. So coming to the next 10 years, what will be the EV future? So next 10 years, as we all are seeing it, in another 4 years time, 2030, okay, it will be in 3, 4, 5 years of time, it will be a much more additional growth in the EV segment. Not only in the kinds of vehicles, kinds of service sectors, kinds of service infrastructure, there will be a technological revolution is going to happen in this segment. New alternative batteries will come. We are also working with European government also, saying that they want to come up with, because in India, sun is there, solar is there, batteries, we can store the energy and then we can run it. What about in other countries where we have a scarcity of sun rays? For them, there will be an alternative source. That will be one more additional alternative for our fossil fuels. That is hydrogen fuel cells. Okay, that is also development is happening in one point of view. So there is huge, we cannot we cannot plan what is going to be happen. Definitely we can foresee that there is a revolution is going to happen. A lot of opportunities are there in multiple segments, multiple verticals of all these technologies.
So that's what we come to the conclusion that change is inevitable.
Absolutely.
We keep on changing, keep on evolving. So for the European market, I can add up to the new stream. What is happening in the European market is that now tapping the resources from the African desert.
Yes.
They are tapping the resources, solar energy from the African desert, Sahara desert. They build a massive paneling and they can completely electrify Europe in the coming years. So this is a challenge which we like to take it up. So I'd like to take 2 more questions and then we'll wind up. Please pardon me for that. Otherwise it will be not an ended one, right? So this is where the change we are looking at. Change is inevitable. we have to change, otherwise change will change us. So this is for good or for bad. Okay, coming back, I'd like to have 2 more questions from the audience so that we can conclude and call it a day. Yeah, madam, I'd like to have some questions to us as well.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it was a very insightful session and majorly where the policy is heading. I mean, the past decade, certainly policy drove EV adoption in the country because without the state policies, Karnataka was the first state to come up with the EV policy, and then
I was a part of the policy.
Over 30 states now are really competing to see who is going to be the EV capital of India. But the problem is, where should the money go? I mean, we are saying that incentives certainly help the initial stage, but there is the next stage also where there is a policy certainty that is needed for a longer term. The government should not be so. For example, in UP, they had EV policy, EV incentives. In between, they introduced incentives for hybrid. Now, suddenly the consumer is confused. Is the government saying that EVs are going to be the future or the hybrid vehicles are gaining traction? After that, a lot of it went and now they have withdrawn the incentives for hybrid. But we have crossed that stage that the vehicles need incentives because the consumer has become aware to buy EVs. Now, where should the government then put the money in terms of policy or incentives so that this can move forward? Should we go into more R&D sponsorships from the government? And for charging infrastructure also, certainly there's a lot of support needed because real estate is a big problem in every city.
No, support is not required through regulations. I want to cut you there. Support is required through regulations, not through funding.
No, exactly.
Government
that is what I'm saying.
Government should not be in a funding region where it becomes an utmost chaos. This is what is happening for the development.
That is true, sir. That is true. I'm saying the incentives cannot play a role for a longer time. But then some support is certainly needed for the R&D and innovation that has to happen in the country. Because that is where we are lacking.
That's why private sector will be strengthened.
Exactly.
They have to make money out of R&D.
And
government should not support R&D.
No, government certainly needs to have some schemes to support because these are capital intensive sectors. You know, for a new entrepreneur who's come up and many EV OEMs that has come up in the country, if you need deep tech solutions in the country, there is some amount of hand-holding, incubation support that has to come from the government, is what we think.
Absolutely, you are right, madam.
Fair enough.
See, actually, government has taken a lot of initiative in the academic level, in institution level, lot of research happening in the institution level, education segment level, college level, and lot of promotional activities happening, okay, in terms of making an awareness of the EV technologies and the futuristic. We are not giving only training to the students. The trainer, they are educated. Once the trainer is educated, they can make them students aware of what is coming future.
No, what is happening, sir?
So
actually,
all those things, policies are.
Yeah, government should not be in the business of doing business. Government should not be in the business of doing business. Government should be in a regulatory position. It should guide the guidelines and start and give the incentives of whatever sort of to the actual wheeler. Jojita Vaisikandar should be the concept of the day. Industry should develop, invest on R&D. People who have guts to have invest in R&D. This was a debate between Maruti chairman, Mr. Bhargav and me. This was because the 30 years they didn't invest anything. Today they're saying the technology will not run. It is not bad. That you did not invest on development, you cannot have the right to talk about technology. So this is where I think the private sector and the public sector and the government can have a tripod agreement in taking the technology forward. So this is the rule of the game. Because just give a very 1 minute example, because previously before the FAME 1, FAME 2 came, you know what was it was very astonishing to know that there were 30,000 vehicles registered, electric vehicles. You know what was the manufacturing? 3,000 vehicles. 3,000 vehicles were manufactured, 30,000 vehicles took the subsidy. This was the order of the day. And please thank the present government, unbiased, whether it's any political affiliation is not there, please thank them for getting the policies right, in the policies place, competing in the world. This is where we should come from. And we should thank what the policy is, the regulations. Any one more question and we'll close, sir.
I'll add some points to that. I completely agree with Mr. Srikanth. You know, government has to play the role of simulating the economy. It shouldn't become the funder and then say, go, let me help you build businesses. Because because as a consumer, even if I have to buy an EV, I have to buy EV on the merits of the EV, not because at the end it is cheaper. I want to realize that it is good for the country, it is better for the environment, and that should be the core motivations for the consumers at the end of the day. Fine, for now to simulate the value chain, subsidies are being reduced, but that cannot be the end means. Excellent.
Just to give a push, just give a hand holding and say that I am also there with you. That's a motherly help they should give. Mother
Yes.
cannot come to your office.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I think...
Yeah, one more question we'll take. He's
Okay. But we are really getting off time.
Yeah, I know. Just one more, please. Excuse me. He was raising the hand for quite some time.
Well, if we talk about the incentives, if you take the case of EU is funding the research in Germany, Netherlands, and France, and Italy, all those countries for development of the technology, because it is the technology which should be long-lasting, not the product. Because if the technology is not good, I don't know the EV market can sustain longer. Because that's what we want, and that's what the government is expecting from the people.
So here in India, we have a skill. We have a research centers. We need not to copy from anyone. So we have in-house expertise in all the field. Not only in IT segment, in mechanical segments, hardware segment, information technology, okay, so chemical segment. Expertise are there, resource are there, okay. Raw materials are available in India. We can be a pioneer in this segment in next decade. If there is a question, what will be the future? We have all the resource. We have collectively worked together by getting the right resource, right opportunity for the right person, and the right resources, availability.
Yeah, Shashi,
Collectively
actually today
make
what is
things.
happening, we are in a self-reliance. India is
Yeah.
a self-reliant country. We can sustain anything what we want. Technology, production system, everything is there. Everything is only that we have to put things in place and start moving ahead. So that is where we regulations that are. I think India is already ahead of the EV technology. You don't have to worry. And next coming years we'll be taking over. I think all Teslas will go home and all Mahindra 9Es will be in the American markets. Thank you very much. Thank you for the day, and thank you for the organizers for giving this opportunity. And sorry for pulling up the time, and we really beg our pardon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So we thank all
I thank my fellow panelists also for being such a sport.
Yeah, yes. We thank the moderator and the panelists. So now we invite Sri Ramesh Shivana to hand over the mementos and take the group picture while we move ahead for the final session.